Introduce myself. So I'm Kate Carroll. I'm the Assistant Director of Creativity and Innovation. And one of the main programs that I run is the Student Seed Innovation Grant at CC. So that's run through our department currently. And it's a donor funded grant. And I don't know, are most of you, I know Manuel, you're familiar with it. Are others, Victoria and Jacob, are you also familiar with it?
Yes.
Okay. So just so you know, and let me bring up no problem, Jacob. Let me just bring up the presentation. But we are changing up the program a little bit this year. And I'll go over sort of the two main areas, like the two main like switches or changes or updates that we're doing. But for the most part, if you're familiar with the program, it hasn't changed significantly. So just to give you a brief overview, one of the things, we're adjusting sort of the focus of the program. So it is still a donor funded program, and it's really about giving students the opportunity to build projects on their own. So coming up with a question or a problem that you're interested in and that you want to explore more. And it is, it's something that can't really be done in the confines of a block program or in the confines of a class. And the one thing that one of the things that we're adjusting this year is that we're going to be really asking that the projects align to the priority pillars of Colorado College. So anti-racism, sustainability, and mental health and wellness. And those are sort of the three areas of focus that the president's office has decided that we're really going to focus and put a lot of energy in. What's interesting is that the Student Seed Innovation Grant Program, in many ways, a lot of the projects that we have funded in the past actually fall under these priorities, just happened to do so. It wasn't like anyone was actually trying. And I'll show you some examples in a little bit. So it is still a committee of people that review all of the projects and then decide which to vote upon. When writing or coming up with your project idea, so what the committee is always looking for now, of course, will be alignment to one of the three CC priorities, but then definitely a passion for the project. I mean, that's not a problem. Everyone who applies for SSIG is always, they're very passionate about their ideas because these are things that they are invested in. We are going to be really focusing more on what is the so what factor of the project. So specifically, what is the larger global or cultural issue that the project is either trying to benefit, perhaps solve? How is it adding to the greater good? We have, again, it's not to say the projects in the past were missing this, they had this, but what we weren't asking people to do was be specific about how they saw their project fitting into sort of a bigger cultural effort, a greater global good. So that's something that in the updated questions for the application, that will be addressed. So you can really dive into that a little bit more. And then this grant program, we really are looking for incredibly high level writing standards. We recommend that applicants work with someone in the writing center to have someone there review their application, just review their approach to writing the grant application, because the committee themselves, and I'll get into the committee a little bit more in just a second, but the committee, a lot of these people are not associated with CC directly. So you are writing a grant application as though you were writing to a grant committee at, XYZ nonprofit or some, whatever college you want to get into, that kind of thing. So it is we're looking for a lot of rigor in the writing. It's not about length so much as it is about precision and just being very detailed oriented. And if you work with someone in the writing center, they'll really walk you through how grant writing is different than different kinds of academic writing. It's a good skill to have. So it's good practice just to even begin that before you graduate. Oops, let me go back. I'm back here. Okay. So applications, let me just make sure, was that, yeah, okay. Applications. So any college student, any CC student who's currently enrolled and taking classes at CC can apply for an SSIG grant. Individuals or teams can apply. If you are a team, at least 50% of the SSIG team has to be comprised of current CC students. So, I mean, your team could be 2 people, your team could be 6 people, but no matter what, you have to have at least half of that, half of those people have to be CC students. And seniors can apply. The way we work is that as long as your application is in prior to your graduation, and if it is approved, you have up to 12 months to complete your project after your graduation. So it is one of these things where you have to still be a student at CC to apply. You cannot be a graduated senior. You cannot be alumni. That's basically, it's just not legals. We can't do that. Another change that we have made to the grant program this year is the process is going to change slightly. In the past, we had application rounds in block 1, 3, 5, and 7. We are now skinnying it down, so to speak, to just 1 application round per semester. So the first application round in academic year 23-24 will be in block 3. Applications will be due the first day of block 3 by 11:59 that night. We're also going to be reviewing applications differently. So all applications will go through a first round, a round 1 application review in which they are reviewed by myself and others in the creativity and innovation department. We in this first round of review, it will be just making sure we're checking all the boxes, that it aligns with priorities. We've got, you're passionate about it. You've been very clear on how it aligns with greater good, and just making sure it fits all of those parameters and that the writing is up to the standard that we're looking for. From the round 1 applicants, we will select a certain number. It will depend on how many people apply, but we will select applicants to go to round 2. Round 2 will be when the applications are reviewed by the bigger SSIG committee, which includes people who are not associated with CC. I can say that our committee currently, we've got people who work in the arts. We have people who work in startup design and like startup funding. We are also still looking for a couple more people for our committee. We've had a couple who have had to, they've sunsetted out, so we will be bringing a couple more people on. But there's 5 outside entities, 5 outside people who review these, the proposals. What is going to happen now in round 2, and this is different as well, is that the round 2 applicants, those chosen to move on to that second round in the application process, will have the opportunity to present their proposal to the committee. It will be a presentation via Zoom. It will happen like the end of block 3, or if it's the block 6 deadline, into block 6. We'll just, obviously we'll try to get everyone sort of set on a certain day, and everyone can present via Zoom to the committee. They'll have about a 10-minute time frame for presenting and answering questions. What we've found in the past and feedback we've received is that, you know, these applications, it's one thing to write an application, but writing is not always the best way for a person to explain and get their idea across. So it's nice to have the opportunity for applicants to present. And also it gives the committee members an opportunity to ask questions and get feedback from the applicant. In the past, we didn't have a question answer feedback round from the committee, and it's something that the committee really wants so that they can really better and fully understand what each application is trying to achieve. We are planning to only fund 4 projects per semester. This could change. It's in the past, it's basically been, you know, we could fund 7, we could fund 1, it sort of went based on the number of applicants we received and the quality of the applications. We needed a bit more parameter around how many we were funding and to what financial extent. That was just a request of the college budgeting office. So as of right now, and again, this could change, we'll see how it goes, but we will fund 4 per semester, and we are capping funding at $6,000 per project. In the past, it used to be capped at $6,000 for individuals and $8,000 for teams. But what we have found is that a lot of times people were putting in budgets they were just trying to get to a number, not necessarily that was the amount they needed. It was like, we're a team, so we'll ask for $8,000, but we're not necessarily sure we need $8,000. We're just sort of saying we need that much. So we're going to cap it at 6,000 and see how this goes. If it becomes something that it's really not working, we could certainly revise it, but that's the way it's going to move forward in this first semester, at least. Does anyone have any questions yet? And don't worry, because there's time for questions at the end. Another thing is that we are going to include that we can either fund a project in full or in part. We had a situation, like we had a couple projects in this class in Block 7 of last year where the project was solid. It needed a little bit of tweaking and a little more dimension to it, but the committee chose to fund a project for half of the requested amount as a way to get the project started, and then they're asking for an update at the end of the summer to see if they will fund the remainder of the requested budget. So we are going to also take that into account as we move forward this year. Next, let's go. Applications are submitted through Summit. That will still apply. Currently, I've taken the Summit page down just because we're updating everything. And if you've gone to the website, that's also down because I'm updating everything. The application will have project-specific questions. I'm not sure if you've looked at the questions in the past. There was a lot of repetition and some are frankly quite big. So we're trying to really be more focused on our questions and just not make it quite so long. It's still a real heavy application, but trying to be very specific in terms of what we are wanting people to answer in the questions. You do need to include an estimated project budget in your application. The project budget, you should be really going out, and if you're proposing a project that will result in like creating an actual product, you should do your best to go out and try to find out what individual cost components will be, so you have an accurate budget. If your project is more travel oriented, budget based on like what's airfare right now, you can go to the IRS website and find the per diem amounts for different countries and cities. I'm happy to send you that link if you need it eventually, but it's that kind of specificity where you're really trying to give a very accurate budget based on what numbers you can find right now. You do need 2 letters of recommendation. You need a letter of recommendation from a mentor. Your mentor can be someone associated with CHC, but does not have to be. We have like a mentor form, sort of gives an overview of what the mentor responsibilities are, if you will. They need to review that and basically in their letter state that they've reviewed it and they're agreeing to be a project mentor. And then you also need a faculty member letter of recommendation. The faculty member letter of recommendation is different in that it does need to be from a faculty, or in some cases, we've had staff members at CC write the letter of recommendation, kind of depends on the project. But it's basically, in that sense, the faculty member is supporting the project idea and supporting the student or the student team who is developing it. The faculty member does not have to be involved in the project after writing the letter of recommendation. It's mostly just sort of like, yeah, I think these people, they're solid. I've had them in class, whatever. They seem really solid. The project seems really solid. I think they could do a good job on it. It's just, yeah, it's like a character reference more than anything. In terms of letters of mentor and faculty recommendation, a lot of times with teams, I get the question as to whether or not every person in the team needs an individual letter of recommendation from mentors or faculty members. You do not. If you are a team, the letters of recommendation are written for the team for the project. Mentors and faculty members will likely know some team members better than others. They may not know some team members at all if they're not associated with CC, and that's fine. That's okay. It's more about their writing in support of the project, and if it's a team, the team as a whole. Other elements that we require, a college transcript. Please just do whatever just send, take a screenshot of what the registrar has on file for you. You do not have to buy your official transcript. A student account statement. This is basically just confirming that you don't have outstanding fines or things that need to be paid to the college. It doesn't mean that your tuition is different. It's more like if you have a bunch of parking tickets that haven't been paid, if you were to receive a grant, money from the grant will go and pay the parking tickets first before you would ever get it. It's just basically saying that your account's clear, and if you receive the grant, you would be able to receive the money in full. Tuition, lodging, that stuff is not the same. That's different. If you are working with human subjects in a project, you do need to talk to the IRB office and get go over the project with them and get approval from them or feedback. If you're working with animals, same thing. You have to talk to the IACUC, and that's, again, these are all on campus. And then if you're doing international travel, you need to check in with Global Education and Field Study. It says for approval, but it's mostly just so that they are aware that you're planning to do a project abroad and that it's in a place where they are not, there are certain countries where Global will basically say, we cannot support you going there. It's too dangerous. So as long as it doesn't, as long as it's a fine place to go, they're going to be fine with it. A few things that the funds can and cannot do. So the funds can help pay for travel and cost of living. And it really has to be if the project is location specific. Manuel, I know a little bit about the project you want to do. In your case, the SSIG funds can help pay for that because it's a very location specific kind of project. We have had some, projects in the past where people are asking basically, they just want to be able to use the funds to work on their project, all summer long, and so that they don't really have to get a job. And that's different. If you can still work, part-time or full-time and work on your project on the side, we're going to request that the funds are not going to just pay rent and allow you to sort of study, like have this as your summer work option. It's very, it's project by project. We are going to request in projects where you are requesting that some of the funds be used for housing and food, that kind of thing, that there's an explanation of why the project really requires that kind of on-site intense, focus where you really can't like do a second job or something like that. I mean, and of course, if you're overseas, you can't really just get a job there. So, but we will ask for a little bit more overview as to why living stipends are being requested, just so we have a better gauge as to whether or not, yeah, this is a project that really, really requires living stipend to be successful versus like, kind of think they could probably do that like at night on the weekends. Other things that the funds can help support, if you are proposing a project where you have to learn stuff like coding a computer or something like that, you can use funds to help pay someone to teach you or to take a class, buy software, that kind of thing. And I mean, this makes sense, but of course we don't want you hiring someone to do the project for you. That defeats the entire purpose. And you can use SSIG funds to purchase project-specific supplies. So again, like software, like if you're, building something and you're buying the actual hardware or whatever it is for it, those kind of things, subscriptions to certain types of, a lot of people are like, they need to be able to buy an Adobe subscription, like things like that. Those are in the parameters. And again, it's sort of case by case. If you ever have a question, you can ask me and I can confirm for you whether or not that's an okay use of funds. Some things that funds cannot support. So we cannot support, like directly be supporting a thesis project in progress. So if the SSIG project is so that you can complete your thesis project so you can graduate, they can't be used that way because it's not an equitable use of funds. However, if you've completed the first part of your thesis, like if you've completed the thesis project that's, your graduation requirement, but you want to take that thesis project further and you want to, branch out, explore more things, go deeper, that's different. And that is an acceptable like application approach for SSIG. We just can't, we've had a couple of applicants where, they need help helping pay for their thesis project, but that's not what the fund was set up for. So patent applications, we can't pay for those. You cannot rent office space. Again, if you need living stipend, that's different. You can't hire staff. This hiring staff, it does not mean, like if you have a friend who's going to do artwork for your project and you want to pay them like $50 or $100 or whatever for their work, that's different. You are basically giving them a gift and you can do that with the money. You just can't hire someone and say they're going to work for you like 40 hours a week. That's a whole different legal thing and you don't want to get involved in that. You cannot hire people to complete the project for you. You cannot use the funds to pay off debts that are related to or not related to the project. You cannot use the funds to purchase computers, cell phones, Androids, Apple phones or Androids, and like personal technology. This one is a little tricky because it's like software. Yes, you can purchase a software subscription, but you can't purchase the hardware to run that software. Basically, if you're still a CC student, you can borrow a computer from the college if you need. It's a little, the reason for that is that to buy an entire computer for the project, that's a bit large. So that has been something that the committee will not allow. And then directly fund, support, or finance nonprofits. What that means is that you cannot take the money and like donate it to another nonprofit. just directly. If you're trying to create your own nonprofit, that's different. But we've had some cases in the past where they wanted to get SSIG funds and then basically like give them to another nonprofit to help that nonprofit operate. And that's, well, it's money laundering, so that's illegal. So that's sort of the overview. Are there any questions at this point? Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a little question about the gift aspect.
Sure.
I think so. I've been thinking about my project in terms of like reciprocity, right? And I think like people's times for interviews and for teaching you something, right? And for participating should be rewarded in some capacity.
Yes.
Would it be safe as part of my budget I put like gifts such as like taking people to eat or like buying them a shirt? I don't know, like I'm just thinking.
Yes, that's fine. Because if you're doing a project that requires interviewing people or and you know, you need to speak to them and you want to take them to dinner to basically thank them for their time, that's fine. And what I would recommend is just putting in your budget, like I estimate that I will be interviewing, you know, like 15 people for 1 hour each, and I will pay them each whatever $100 or something for their time, whatever seems appropriate. And then but list it out that specifically, so it's not just sort of random gifts. Like be as specific as you can be, whatever that means. And but yes, that's totally fine and completely appropriate.
Thank you.
Yep. So I want to just give you some examples of SSIG projects that we've funded in the past 3 years that actually fall under the main priorities of the college. The fund wasn't actually set up this way at this time when these came through, but it turns out that a lot of them do fall under the priorities. So in terms of anti-racism, and again, this is just to give you just some ideas of the kinds of things that we've funded and, you know, oh, and interesting, it's like anti-racism too. Okay, so the anti-racism examples, one of our early recipients was a team who created a podcast called People, Place, and Power. And it was a podcast that really focused on change makers in specific communities. One thing that they really were adamant about was unwinding the sort of Western savior narrative and looking at change within communities that's been activated and pushed forward by people within the communities of, you know, whether they're Black or Native American, but really seeing it from the standpoint of the people who are living the situation and how they are making change. Because so often it becomes about like, oh, and then the white people came in and they made everything better. And, you know, that's one, whitewashing, two, not really true. And three, these are very unrepresented voices. So that was the focus of their work and their podcast. And it is a podcast that you can go and listen to. It's peopleplacepower.com. They have several episodes up, and they have one of them has moved into becoming a radio producer based on the project. It actually became a springboard for her to move into that kind of work full time after her graduation. This project was really focused on combating anti-Asian and anti-Black sentiment and using the solidarity between these racialized communities to bring forth an art project where they could celebrate the community that has existed within underrepresented communities, past and present. And it was a very multidimensional art exhibit that they worked with the CC Mobile Arts team with last spring, 22. to present around town. So that was one that, again, came out of really just came out of friends who wanted to work together and represent themselves. This student was Chinese, and her focus was helping migrant children in Shenzhen, China, navigate their worlds from being younger children through adolescence and into the educational program. So migrant children in China are, you know, it's very caste system like, and so they're very much, they're, you know, really prejudiced against them. They don't get the same opportunities of children who have grown up in actual cities or towns. And her goal was to help create information tools for these children to help them better navigate the education system, as well as like sexual education. A lot of them don't have that kind of information growing up, and can easily be taken advantage of. So that was really her focus, was to work with a social center from a part of China where she was from. And she was a migrant child growing up, and so she understood some of the very unique challenges that they experience. This project was about looking at the historical segregation in Colorado Springs and how environmental hazards are placed around the city and what effect those have on marginalized communities. There's a lot, you know, redlining has become a more and more like daily topic in cities. And so the focus here was to really understand how redlining in the Colorado Springs community has impacted communities of color and communities of lower income. And specifically, like from a health standpoint, like higher pollution equaling higher asthma equaling, you know, that has impacts on school attendance, it has impacts on just health of family. So that one was very focused in the Colorado Springs area. So some examples of sustainability projects that we have funded include Stringy's armless sunglasses. So this team wanted to really upend the current sunglasses like industry. There's a lot of waste in the current sunglasses industry. One, of course, because it's very plastic heavy, but also typically a lot of, you know, getting rid of sunglasses comes because the arms have broken. And so they developed they were basically looking to develop a sunglass that did not use arms, but instead uses strings on the side. There's another type of sunglass out there called Ombros, I think, that has strings on the side. There's the difference with theirs is that they wanted it to be completely made in the USA and completely environmentally friendly. Since their project has been funded, they have explored different types of materials to make the glass frames. They're currently working with a biodegradable algae product to create the frames, and they've come up with a patented string approach that is different than what was currently out there, but actually makes the fit of the glasses better. So they are they're continuing to work on their project, but they they have some real possibility moving forward and moving this into the product market. Eco Outpost is a project that focuses on creating refillable stations on college campuses so that students can, instead of buying, it's really to help reduce plastic consumption. So it allows students to go and like refill shampoo, refill hand soap, dish soap, that sort of thing at a refill station. You would bring your own container, or there would be recyclable containers there that you could purchase. And that way you're reducing plastic consumption on campus. And ideally allowing that sort of focus on environmental impact to continue past the college years. One approach that this project had to help make the idea equitable was to allow students to pay through their money, their meal plan money, because all students receive meal plan money regardless of, you know, whether you're on a full scholarship or paying full tuition or whatever. So it was a way, and I guess that meal plan money, you can, like, at the end of the year, if you don't use it, you lose it. So that was something they were trying to do. They're trying to get this on CC. It's just, there's a lot of red tape within the administration to make it happen, but they actually have a lot of interest from other colleges, so it will happen. It'd be nice if it would happen at CC first, but I'm not sure it will. So urban farming, the focus of this project was to explore the ability to cultivate mushrooms from coffee grounds. So taking basically, you know, food waste and using it to produce new food opportunities. The project, the person who brought this project forward, they are from South Africa. So they were starting it in just Johannesburg, and with the goal of eventually being able to, like, really make this something that other countries, other cities could take advantage of. And they have, I mean, they've succeeded in terms of, like, creating, like, mushroom blocks that do grow actual mushrooms from the food waste. They've run into a lot of problems too, but that's the thing about these projects, is that it's not about, like, you can have the objective of what you want to achieve, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And part of what this project is about is the exploration, and how do you shift and how do you pivot in a situation where you're like, I thought that was going to work and that totally didn't work. So what do I do now? Like, where do we go next? And that is really something important to keep in mind. This is not about, I set out these 3 objectives and I'm going to hit them. You might, but you might not. And it might turn into something different and something much more, you know, interesting or diverse than you could have expected. So yeah, just so you know, this is one of those projects where it was like, here's the idea, and things went sideways and around and up and down. And it was still incredibly, like, successful in its own way. And then Brownsville's Sustainability Initiative, this team, basically, they were from, well, the lead was from Brownsville, and they were creating a nonprofit organization to really focus on better waste reduction methods within Brownsville. It's a very, you know, that community is very transient, it's very migrant oriented. They wanted to help create a system that was more equitable for all the residents of Brownsville, and creating, like, consistent policies around waste control, waste reduction, which didn't exist in the past. This is another project where they had to do some pivoting once they got there. They had these, you know, they had a certain expectation of what they hoped to achieve, and then realized once they were there were so many moving pieces in terms of the organizations, the government elements, everything they had to work with to create something like this, that they're still in progress, and certainly not as far along as they thought they would be, but it has changed. It's made the project actually much more resilient and much more potentially successful, because they have a lot more buy-in from different organizations throughout the city. Okay, and then some projects, some mental health and wellness examples. So Shelter in Play is a project where the project applicant is basically creating physical spaces where people can interconnect with each other, and really the goal is to help bring back community after COVID. His focus was that he saw just a lot of silos, people not wanting to connect, not even really knowing how to connect anymore. And so building these play systems where people could go and just use them and explore in them and connect with others, or just find connection with themselves. They're module units that can be placed on campus, moved around campus, and they're very much in progress. This kid, like, I don't know, he builds all sorts of amazing, like, climbing type structures. So they're in progress. Hopefully they'll be on campus in the fall, at least some of them, because he wants to get feedback in terms of like how people approach them, like what they think about them, do they feel comfortable interacting with them? If not, why not? And he's also working to make these ADA accessible. So for people, if you're using a wheelchair, how does it work for you? What is the difference, and how do you interact with people and the setup in that kind of capacity? This is a documentary project. This is actually the People Place Power group. They came back and got a second round of funding. The second round of fundings are possible, and I can talk about those offline if that is ever of interest. But they had finished their podcast, and then they wanted to go deeper in terms of the activism story and wanted to focus around abortion rights. So this documentary project is similar in that they are going to interview abortion activists in different countries to understand like what elements, what tactics have worked well in other countries where abortion rights are at risk or have been severely declined or diminished. This is also still in progress. They had they had to take a pause on there. So they're in progress now. And hopefully once we have once they have episodes, we would certainly have them on the SSIG website for people to check out. This is your friend, of course, Manuel. So this project was also they received 2 rounds of funding, but this project was really about focusing on community health and how PrEP programs can be used to bring, used in a way that is consistent across countries, consistent across communities, and are make them stronger so that the people who are more likely to use a PrEP program, so it's a prophylaxis, to help prevent HIV infection. How do you communicate that effectively, especially in countries where, people of the LGBTQ community may be very much looked down upon, maybe very much, almost outlawed, if not outlawed. So working on that, this person has then gone on to do work. They started in South America and the US, and then they moved on to Italy and are now going into their graduate work they're in a highly, incredibly difficult graduate program. Like they only take 25 in the world, focusing on community health and world health initiatives. Manuel, if you want to say more about Marco, you can. I don't feel like I do him justice here at all. So the guy's going to change the world.
Program was so good. Marco was my roommate, so also like, yes, these programs, like I love how they are super, community and injustice oriented. It's not like, I really like painting, let me create a mural, but rather like these are community based and highly researched, and there's a lot of literature and thinking behind them. I know now that I started bringing mine together, all of the pieces is hard, right? Like the discussions with the mentor and the feedback. Yes.
No, he did amazing work, and we were so proud to be able to be a part of his process and help support his work. That was it's one of those where you're like, someday we'll look back and be like, oh my God, we know him. And then the last one, the last example for mental health and wellness, this is another documentary that focuses on understanding how mental illness in creative exploits, if you will, how people use mental illness to actually help create art for themselves and for the public. And instead of looking at mental illness as a negative, as something that is a drawback, something that's not going, that could hold you back, it's like, how do we switch that? How do we switch that conversation and make it something that's, frankly, an opportunity for a different kind of life, a different kind of work to come out of. So that is another one. It seems like with mental health and wellness, we tend to have more, more sort of art specific. I mean, I can't really say that, but it does seem to have more of an art element to it. And then, so that's the whole thing. I actually have no idea how long you signed up for this, how long this is supposed to be. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer some now, or I can always connect back with you in the next few weeks.
Have many projects that have a more engineering focus been funded? Like, I'm hoping to do a project where I'll be manufacturing and like building a prototype to lead, like, I guess, research methodology for like neuroscience research. And that could fit into the sustainability category because it would make that process a lot more sustainable. But I guess, like, have prototypes of that sort been carried through to like the manufacturing phase, or would I be getting external funding to manufacture?
It depends how far you can get with the funding. So we've definitely had several projects that have developed prototypes of one type or another, depending on whatever their project is. They're not really included in this simply because now that we want to try to be within the parameters of these pillars, it's a little, some of them were just like, there was, a student who his project was to design an octocopter. So basically a drone that could carry people. It doesn't really fit within any of those, but it was a really cool project and nothing like it had been done. And there are other examples of those too. Once the website's back up, the list of everyone who's received will be there and what their project is about. But what this grant can do is that we have had multiple projects who have done second round of funding. So first round of funding, you apply, here are your objectives for this first project. If you achieve those objectives, you can then apply for a second round of funding, basically to take it further. And in some cases, yes, that will help with prototype development. I would say like the Stringies, the armless eyewear, they're a 2-round of funding project. And a lot of what they've been using, a lot of what they've used the money for is prototyping and trying to figure out, prototyping different materials to try to figure out what might actually work. And now they're in a place where they're working with actual like engineers to develop their product. The fund will no way be able to support the development and the production of their project. But if they get to a solid enough point, they could definitely go out and start drumming up seed money.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Eco Outpost actually is another one where they received funding from us. He basically went on a tour of all sorts of other like, pitch competitions. And he won a bunch more money for his idea to help fund it. He did receive 2 rounds of funding for us, but he also received money from like a UCCS pitch competition, an international pitch competition. Like we don't, if you receive SSIG funding, that is great, but you can still go out and try to receive funding from other places. We don't say you can't do that. Another thing that's important to know, especially if you're doing a prototype, we do not require any kind of, we don't own the patent in any way. You come up with your product or your design or whatever, it is yours. Other schools that have programs like this, a lot of times they will require that they partially own any kind of patent that you may create. We don't do that. It's yours to, you know, it's your idea. If you made a lot of money, we'd probably want you to help sponsor the program, but we're not gonna take half of it off up front. So, yeah. Any other questions?
I have 2 questions, but
Yeah.
I don't know if Victoria wants to. I don't know. I hope this will be informative. But I was wondering how much of the application of like the new questions will be about like how the project impacts our education. I know there's like other grants that are really focused on like how this will impact your education at CC, how this will impact your professional career. Yeah, that's my first question.
I can say that the new questions, and they're not completely like totally finalized yet. There is a question in there. It's not about how it will, but how you hope working on this project may impact your college education or perhaps your future professional goals. But it's not, that's more just so that we better understand kind of what you're looking to do in your life. That's not like a question that would be a, oh, you answered it right or wrong. It's not that. If you were doing a project though, that was only about like, I just want to make a lot of money and I don't really care about anything about this, except I just want to make a lot of money, which of course no one would really say, but that's the kind of thing. It's like, well, that's not really what this is for. So.
Thank you. And then when do you think the new updated application will be open on Summit?
Let's see. So I'm out of town this week and we are in the process of revising our website. It will be up, like parts of the website have been republished. This will be up definitely by the end of July. And that means on Summit too, by the end of July. So what's today, the 11th? Whatever, yeah, it'll be up. You should be able to go in onto our website and or Summit on August 1st. It would be there for you to begin, you know, if you want to start writing. Yeah. I've talked to Roy Jo Sarton in the Writing Center just to let her know, like she's worked with a lot of other applicants in the past on projects. I'm actually having her also look at the questions just so in situations where students go and ask for her help, she has a clear understanding of what the questions are and what the goal is, but also just to get her feedback since she's an expert on grant writing. But that will also help from a standpoint of if you want to work with the Writing Center, they'll have just sort of additional insight around this grant program more than they have in the past, honestly. You don't have to work with them. It's just kind of nice to always have an extra outside eye. So that's all. Cool. You good?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you guys were able to make it. And again, yeah, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. If you want to talk about your projects in detail, just specifically, you know, set up a time to Zoom with me or come by our office once things are closer to back to school time. Please feel free. It helps us to help you to know what you're trying to achieve so that we can really help you, you know, focus. We get a lot of projects that are really good ideas. They just need a little tweaking and a little more solid, like being just a little bit more like directed to get the funding. And it always helps if you are communicating with us more than less. So that's all. Cool. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day and summer, and you know, we'll chat soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.